Hey everyone, this is our review for the 2018 Jund Commander Precon. If you like what you're seeing here, hit subscribe, ding that bell to notify you when we make more. But let's get right into it here. Nature's Vengeance.
Yes, this is the Lands Matter deck that they gave us. This is in the Jund colors, black, red, green. And like always, it has a Planeswalker that can be our commander, plus two other sort of interchangeable Jund commanders. We're going to cover those first. Then we're going to do the cards that are brand new for this deck. If it's a repeat from one from a deck we already did, we'll just refer you back to that part. And then we're going to talk about some cool reprints. Who heads up this one?
Ooh, this one is Lord Windgrace. 2 black, red, green, Jund colors, obviously. 5 mana for a 5 loyalty Planeswalker. 3 abilities, +2. Discard a card, then draw a card. If a land card is discarded this way, draw an additional card. That's pretty cool. -3 is return up to 2 target land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Neat. And then the -11, the ultimate here, is destroy up to 6 target non-land permanents, then create 6 2/2 green cat warrior creature tokens with Forest Walk.
Okay.
Okay. So what do we think of Lord Windgrace in a Lands Matters Jund deck?
Well, I think it's fantastic, right? This is a great Lands Matters commander, but I would argue that you could just run this in any Jund deck effectively as part of the 99, because those first 2 abilities synergize fantastically, right? You discard a land card and draw 2 cards. Yep. And then later on, when you got 2 in your graveyard, you -3, and you put 2 of those straight back onto the battlefield. That's pretty amazing.
That's pretty great. Yeah, I mean, the looting, if it's not a land, it's just a straight loot for +2, which is decent enough. And yeah, like you said, the -3 then gets those back. So you're not actually even going to lose much if you're pitching that land every time. No way to protect it. Feels like that's a thing we always talk about with Planeswalkers, and I don't think really any of these from these precons have that.
Saheeli makes servos.
Yeah, that's right. Saheeli makes servos, right. But I mean, in Commander, Planeswalkers are so easily killable that you are probably not going to play one out until you've got a bit of a board set up, a bit of a protection already set up for them. So like the fact that they have protection as well is not as important, I feel like, which is kind of weird to say. But
I feel like
it definitely is still important and still helps.
I feel like Lord Windgrace protects itself after you've got all those landfall triggers that create little token creatures anyway. So Windgrace's -3 uses other landfall things to get more creatures in the way.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like Aminatu's thing is that like she comes out early enough that maybe she can build up a little bit and make it harder for her to be handled. Whereas Windgrace is 5 mana. So it's like right in that sweet spot of when people are starting to play out their creatures that might be able to attack into it and kill them. I mean, seven loyalty is a lot though. Like you put them down, you plus them.
I don't hate it.
Anyways,
I think it's neat.
I don't hate it. I like the abilities, but you know, whatever. It seems like a little more fragile than the previous ones. Anyways, okay. So overall, though, like you said, land matters. Though it's pretty solid. I think you're going to want something like this, especially when we're caring about lands matters and the graveyard, which I think most lands decks do in Commander. So really great. The ultimate to me is like a little underwhelming. Like six permanents is not nothing. Don't get me wrong. 6 permanents is very good, but 6 permanents on a multiplayer game is like 2 from you, 2 from you, 2 from you in a 4-player game. God forbid you're playing 5 and you just get 1 from each one and 1 additional one. Like you're definitely going to be getting the 6 most powerful things on the board. If 4 of those are from the same player, you're straight up making a huge enemy. And I guess you better hope that that person has forests. Otherwise your 2/2 cat tokens they're just 2/2s. They're just 6 2/2s. I don't know. It feels like
that ultimate is nothing. Like, in my opinion, that ultimate is just a waste of words. Like, it's like the worst ultimate I've ever seen on a commander. I don't know.
Really?
Like, well, you're gonna work so hard to get like what is the total?
11.
6. You're gonna get 12 power and toughness for an ultimate.
Yeah. Whereas
that's
like
the worst. At least like those little Vraska things say, oh, and if they hit a player, they lose the game, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what do you get? A little bit of Forest Walk. It's like, okay, cool. I can do 12 extra damage to you next turn after I've ultimated a bunch. It's like, man, come on, Lord Windgrace. Maybe give me as many cat creatures as I have lands on the battlefield. Why not that?
That would have made a ton of sense.
Like, is that not
that would
reasonable?
have made way more sense.
Is that
and maybe
too
like
much?
maybe I don't get to destroy 6 permanents. Maybe I get to destroy like 3 or 4.
Right?
And then I guess because he's a commander and he's so recastable that maybe they were like, well, we don't want you to just be able to hit your ultimate so easily and then just cast them again and get another one. Like obviously they think about doubling season when it comes to green planeswalkers as commanders, and maybe that's why this ultimate is a little underwhelming.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. But I do think that it is kind of a mistake to like constantly like design green planeswalkers for commander around doubling seasons. Like, yeah, tons of people are going to use them, but like tons of people don't have doubling season. Anyways, right. I guess I got to keep it in mind. All right. So far, Windgrace seems like fine. Definitely in this deck, it seems pretty good though.
It's fine.
What's the next one here?
The next one is Gyrus, Walker of Corpses, X, and then Jun. So X, black, red, green. It's a Hydra, as most Hydras are X creatures. Gyrus, Walker of Corpses, enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. Gyrus starts as a 0/0 on paper. But the interesting thing is, this creates an interesting thing about that X, because when you have to pay 2 for the tax, it counts that in the +1/+1 counters it gets.
Yeah.
So it sort of doesn't have tax on it. Sort of. Like, you still have to pay the X minimum 2 the second time, then minimum 4, but you don't lose anything. All the other commanders, you get less for your mana, but your Gyrus is always going to be as big as the amount you spent on it, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun callback to the 2014 precons, the Marith, the Jaleva, those ones where it cared about the number of times you cast it already, like it,
right.
And it would get a sort of a benefit for that. So I think that's really cool design, and I actually really like it. Like, I think for the first couple casts of Gyrus or whatever, you're basically going to cast them the first time for 3, right? Like, you're not even going to, you're going to ignore that X probably. I mean, depending on how much mana you have.
Let's see what it does first.
Yeah, sure.
Whenever Gyrus attacks, you may exile target creature card with lesser power from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that card that's tapped and attacking. Exile the token at end of combat. Well, here we go. This is where it becomes very interesting. There's a lot. So if we know from all our Alesha Who Smiles at Death decks, there's a lot of really nasty creatures that have low power up front but have massive CMC like on them, so it's a great way to cheat out. So yes, we are going to cast Gyrus for 3, and we're going to figure out a way to cheat some massive creatures in our graveyard with low power and then just sneak them out attacking very early in the game. Alesha gave us white, but this gives us green, so we have access to a whole new world of very low sneaky creatures that we can do this with.
Yeah, and very important, of course, that you exile the tokens at end of combat. So unlike Alesha, you don't just get them back permanently.
True.
So you're probably looking for nothing with attack triggers, oddly enough, because it's already attacking. But definitely some ETB type stuff is going to be good. Maybe even like an activated ability you might want to use. I don't know. But I think this is very exciting and fun commander that is going to get you to attack, but also get that combo-y feel to it. I think this is really fun. I'm actually pretty stoked. I don't have a Jun deck, and because I already have like a very much like a sacrificey Abzan deck, that I'm like, well, most of the Jun commanders are care about that kind of stuff, and I already have that. But this guy seems a bit of a different angle, so I feel like maybe I'm going to make this commander at some point.
Yep.
Great. Okay, another very cool one to round out the 3 marquee commanders here is Tantis, the War Weaver. 3 black, red, green for the legendary Spider. That's a 5/5 that has vigilance and reach. And it says all creatures attack each combat if able. Cool. And whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, you put a +1/+1 counter on Tantis the Warweaver. So Tantis is going to get huge just with the first casting. So it's cost 6. You're going to get a 5/5 with Vigilance and Reach. And then your opponents are going to have to attack. Your opponent's going to have to attack. Your opponent's going to have to attack. And then Tantis comes around. And if he hasn't been killed or anything, you probably have like, I don't know, a 10/10, a 12/12 maybe, something big like that, which is very cool.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were stoked about this because of the spider tribal possibilities. We know that there are there are tons of green and black spiders. There's even some pretty cool green-red spiders. Dragon layer spider, I think, is one of them. Anyways, so that's fun for all you tribal players out there. But other than that, like, this is just a fun card that's going to force attacks, get people moving on the board, which I think is something a commander needs more of. So I love it. I love Tantis. I think it's awesome. Plus the art is really cool.
Theirs very cool. My favorite aspect about this is just by their very nature of attacking you, Tantis is going to eat creatures.
Yeah.
Alive. So they're just incentivized to attack other people. Like, they certainly don't have profitable attacks to you, so they might as well attack someone else. Oh, I love it. I love this card.
Yeah, and the vigilance is very important, as we've mentioned before.
And the reach.
Reach is real.
No one's getting through Tantis.
Yeah, Tantis is a big monster, and you got to watch out for him.
Yeah.
Or her, for that matter. Who knows? Anyways, great. Love this card. So, like, as far as the 3 Jund commanders we've seen, I think I'm more excited about the non-planeswalkers. I think Tantis and Gyrus are very cool.
Yes.
And Windgrace is still good, but just like, I don't know, maybe not as exciting. But so far so good with the 3 commanders. I'm pleased with them going forward here. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the non-commander, the other original cards in the set here. Sean, why don't you take this first one?
Okay, we got Blood Tracker, 3 and a black for a vampire wizard with flying. It's 2/2, and it has an ability, black, pay 2 life, put a +1/+1 counter on Blood Tracker. When Blood Tracker leaves the battlefield, draw a card for each +1/+1 counter on it. It's interesting because black pay 2 life, draw a card exists all over the place. And this sort of has that because it's when Blood Tracker leaves the battlefield, that's when you get those cards. So you don't just get them right away. If you have a sack outlet, you can get them right away.
Sure.
But until you get those cards for your investment, you get to just have Blood Tracker hit way harder. Obviously, if there's any way to give Blood Tracker lifelink in your deck, that's going to make this card amazing. And it flies, so that's good evasion too.
Yeah, an interesting include in this deck where we apparently care about lands and stuff.
Now.
But I will say that Tantis and Gyrus, they don't really care about lands that much, so it's not that big a deal. So, like, even though this is touted as the Lands Matters deck, it is notable that only one of the commanders cares about lands that they've given us. And, I mean, how many of these original cards are going to care about lands? We'll see. But that being said, Blood Tracker is still a cool card, and I think a welcome addition to the any vampire deck, certainly.
Oh, big time.
And like you said, like, greed exists already, so like having it on a creature and then having to wait till it leaves the battlefield does make it worse. But like the body you get in between is not terrible. But I think you're pretty much going to see this live in vampire decks, and that's about it.
It's a safe bet, though. It's safe. Like, you don't have to. It's when it leaves the battlefield. It doesn't have to die or exile or whatever. So like, you'll get your cards, just not right now.
Yeah. For sure. Next, we have Crash of Rhino Beetles. I love the name of this card because it just describes what it is. There's no like fun, like weird other words. No, it's a Crash of Rhino Beetles. Yeah. They're running at you. They're huge. It's 4 and a green for a creature. A 5/5 with trample. And it says Crash of Rhino Beetles gets +10/+10 as long as you control 10 or more lands. This is cool. I love this.
15/15 tramples
for 5.
good.
Yeah, right? And getting 10 or more lands in Commander, you don't need a Lands Matters decks for that. Or deck. Blah, blah, blah. You don't need a Lands Matter deck. Blah. You don't need a Lands Matters deck for that. Thank you, my own mouth.
Yeah.
For that, so a 5-mana 15/15 trampler is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Not much else to be said about it, right?
I think it's funny that it's creature insect.
Yeah, it is.
Like when you read that, it's just like, oh, it's a 15/15 trample. It's a whole bunch of rhino beetles. One insect.
Multiple insects. But yeah, this is you're gonna see this in all the big creatures matters decks for sure.
Yeah.
Like we said, not just lands.
Next up, it's an Emissary of Grudges. It's 5 and a red for a 6/5 Ifrit with flying and haste. 6/5 flying haste for 6. That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
As Emissary of Grudges enters the battlefield, secretly choose an opponent. I like doing that. I like secretly choosing an opponent. Reveal the player that you choose. That is the price you pay for this activated ability. So you reveal it and then choose new targets for target spell or ability if it's controlled by the chosen player, and if it targets you or a permanent you control, activate this ability only once. So it's probably not a huge surprise who you've picked.
Right.
Because based on the way the decks are playing out, you probably have a best guess as who has the most targeted abilities or removals.
Yeah. Yeah, and if there is a thing where it's like, well, anyone here could be that person, who do you pick?
Yeah, I mean, in that case, it's not the worst. I mean, you gotta hope that the 6/5 flying haste body is good enough, and this bonus may or may not happen.
Yeah,
but if everyone's very likely of casting spells, then you'll get something out of them.
But also, like, the player who you targeted now is probably not going to pick you, so you've at least probably saved you. Like, the threat of activation alone is probably enough to get that player to not spot destroy something you control, and or hit you with a big fireball or something of that nature.
So it's more valuable.
Yeah, I think
down.
Yeah, I kind of think that's where the threat of activation comes in. But then you start to play this meta game of like, do you pick that person? Because they will just as naturally assume it's them. So do you pick someone else on the off chance that they try to do something? I still think the answer is you always pick the person you should pick, right? Like, because then if the person decides to call your bluff, you're gonna look like it's gonna be bad for you, right?
Yeah. And then once they know you're bluffing, they're like, well, I guess now I'll just cast everything on you, and you never reveal it. And then the other person's like, oh, I guess it's me then, so I guess I won't. Yeah.
So it's interesting, but it's a fun. A thing I think we're noticing with a lot of these cards is that like there's some fun design space they've decided to go with. It doesn't always necessarily translate into the best cards or the most powerful cards, but I do appreciate that they're going into this space and trying to figure it out, and not immediately making the most over-the-top broken version of what this card could be. So while Emissary of Grudges maybe isn't amazing, I like the idea that maybe we'll get some other emissaries or something like that after and see some good stuff.
The fact that it's a 6/5 flying haste means that it's like, you know what? Even if I never get this isn't the worst.
No, yeah, totally. And I mean,
I'm gonna chip away for some real damage with this.
I mean, he does get killed by who is it? Is it King? Who is it? Is it? Oh man, there's an old king in Arabian Nights that kills Ifrits and Jinns.
Oh, I don't know.
Destroy target Ifrit, so he will get killed by that guy. So that is that is a pretty notable downside. Yeah. Great. Okay. Next we have another. Oh, it's the Loyal Apprentice. So we've actually already talked about this card on the Saheeli deck review. So that's the Exquisite Invention. So you can go check that one out. Basically, it's just the Lieutenant cycle, and this is the red one, and it's going to give you Thopters. So moving on, we've got a true new one we haven't talked about yet, the green one, Loyal Guardian. 4 and a green for a creature, Rhino. It's a 4/4 with Trample, and it has Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
There are numerous creatures that say for every creature that has a +1/+1 counter on it, they get trample, or every creature with a +1/+1 counter on it is unblockable. That's a blue one, for example. So just having this out to enable those is crazy to me.
Yeah, there's tons of creatures that do this for way more cost than just being on the battlefield. So this seems like it's very, very good for those decks that want that. There's tons of decks that care about +1/+1 counters being on multiple things, being able to take them off and things like that. So like that's very good. And so essentially, if you have your commander and you're getting the lieutenant triggers, this is actually like a 5/5 with trample for 5 when you cast it. Like if you have your commander out, because it's the beginning of combat, it's going to get the counters, right?
Pretty great.
I think it's very good. Yeah.
I like all of the loyals.
Me too. All of the new lieutenants. They're not as big and splashy as the previous cycle of them, but I think they're still very solid.
Yeah. The next one is the black one, which we talked about in our last deck. We talked Loyal Subordinate. So we'll skip that one and move up to Nesting Dragon. 3 red for a dragon. It's 5/4 with flying. Imagine if it wasn't a dragon. It's called Nesting Dragon, and it's just like a treat.
An insect.
Yeah. Anyway, it has landfall. Okay. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 0/2 red dragon egg creature token with defender, and when this creature dies, create a 2/2 red dragon creature token with flying and red. This creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So Dragon Egg is in M19 right now. You might be familiar with it. It just makes Dragon Egg tokens that turn into 2/2 whelps that you can.
Which, like, about time you had a dragon that lays eggs.
Yes, I can't believe we have never seen a dragon lay an egg before now.
Yeah, and here we are. So yeah, 5 mana, 5/4 for something that spits out a pretty like a I don't know about commander, but like a decent card in general, because it makes other tokens, like works with sacrifice themes that Jund always tends to like.
You get 2 out of it. You get the egg, then you get the whelp.
Yes, exactly.
If you want to sacrifice.
So works with those sack themes, works with landfall, which this deck obviously is going to care about, and stuff like that. So I love this card. This is like
fantastic.
Really good. And just dragon decks also in general, maybe even dragon decks care about this. The mono red dragon, remember the mono red dragon tokens deck we made with Lapis? Like Nesting Dragon is an auto include in that.
Yep.
Love it in that deck.
Big time.
So yeah, Nesting Dragon, very, very cool. Next, we have another Hydra. This is a Whip Tongue Hydra. It's 5 and a green for a Lizard Hydra, which is kind of interesting. They're not all Lizard Hydras, I guess. 4/4 with reach. When Whip Tongue Hydra enters the battlefield, destroy all creatures with flying and put a +1/+1 counter on Whip Tongue Hydra for each creature destroyed this way.
I mean, that's what green hates, so good on you, Whip Tongue.
Yeah, I think that's pretty solid. To also give it reach is a great thing, just because it will now protect against other future big flyers. Hopefully you will have a pretty large flyer yourself. Or sorry, creature with reach, I should say. But yeah, I like this guy a bunch. Like it's kind of hard to say like what green deck do you put this in though? All of them? But you probably don't. I mean, you probably don't put just a 6/6, a 6 CMC creature in just every deck. So what are the ones that will truly want it?
I think you'll know it if you're just like, oh man, I keep losing to flyers in this deck.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you just have that feeling, this is a great ad for it.
Yeah, I don't have enough defense against flying. This is a 1-card catch-all that does it all. Things that care about +1/+1 counters are also going to be relevant, but like you don't need that to make this card good, I think.
I mean, it's weird that, I know they don't build these decks to be perfectly synergistic out of the box, but this is counter synergy with a lot of that we've already talked about. The Emissary of Grudges, the Nesting Dragon, all the wells.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Important to note that, though, when you're playing this deck out of the box. But Whip Tongue Hydra seems cool.
Seems cool.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how much it actually gets run, though. Blinking abilities also seem good with this.
Yeah.
Just to point out. All right. What's next here?
Ooh, Zancha, Sleeper Agent. A lot of people are very excited about this because of past lore of the game, which I am not familiar with. But
me neither.
Zancha is 1 black-red for a legendary creature minion. She is 5/5, and it says, as Zancha Sleeper Agent enters the battlefield, an opponent of your choice gains control of it. Zancha attacks each combat if able and can't attack its owner or planeswalkers its owner controls, aka you. 3 generic. Zancha's controller loses 2 life and you draw a card. Any player may activate this ability. Well, now, that's fantastic, because who doesn't want to draw extra cards? It's like at the end of everybody's turn, it's like, I got nothing else to do. I guess I'll drain you for 2 and draw a bunch of cards. Like just some random opponent who decided. It's great.
It's like, wow, yeah, any player is going to want to draw cards, of course. So that alone is good, let alone the 2 life. But wow.
I feel like you don't want to run Zancha until you have Assault Suit on, which says you cannot sacrifice this creature, because any good brewer would put a few sack outlets in their deck, even if it's not a sacrifice themed deck, for effects like this. This is exactly why. Cards like this, where if they give you Zancha, you just say, okay, fine, sacked.
The other thing I find interesting about this is that Zancha must attack. Now, obviously, she can't attack her owner. But you can just, if someone gives you Zancha, you can't just run it into another 5/5 or a 6/6 or something and make that deal with like the non-Zancha player and just be like, okay, can I run this into your Colossal Dreadmaw? You know, whatever, right? Anything that's bigger is just going to eat this card. Now, so obviously, as a Zancha player, you're going to have to build in a lot of stuff to protect her, like making her unblockable, so that way whenever she attacks, she can't just be thrown in the garbage. And like you said, Assault Suit, sack. Obviously, you don't want to give Zancha to a player with a ton of sack outlets if you don't have that Assault Suit. But the Assault Suit seems like it's a very obvious include in this deck. So
yeah,
cool though. I again, new design space being explored here, and I love it. I think it's great.
I think it's interesting. You talked about making the deal. It's like, hey, can I run my Zancha into your big Colossal Dreadmaw? What if I, as the Colossal Dreadmaw player, want to draw cards off of it, and I don't want you to run it?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it's not the easiest deal in the world to just snap off.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah. And especially if the Zancha player is like, fine, if you do that, I'll just give it to you next time. And it's like, I guess because then you get in the thing where like, fine, I'll just run it into another big creature. Like, I don't care if you give me Zancha, as long as there's a big creature on the board. And I guess that's, again, the job of the Zancha player, is to make sure that there aren't these ways of getting around her ability. You want her to stay relevant.
Yeah.
And that 3 mana ability to hit for 2 life and draw a card is definitely a good one. It's just
in the sweet spot where everybody's going to take advantage of it. And it's like, yes, please. Like if it was just 3 mana, do 2 damage to the controller, everyone's like, nah, I got better things to do with my mana. But like draw a card, it's like, okay, I'll do that a couple times.
I'll do that a few times. Mind you, that's still Zancha coming at you. That's still a 5/5 attacking you that you're just like not blocking, chumping?
Well, maybe chumping, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, if you can afford the chumps, sure, no problem. But if you're one of those, if you're not running tokens and you're just, you can't keep taking 5 commander damage every turn. Plus, maybe it's got some kind of thing on it protecting it, making it a little bit bigger,
I'll put my fog bank in front of it.
Your fog bank. Yeah, right. You're not running fog bank.
I got fog banks.
All right. Okay, anyway, Zancha's a very cool card, very good card. We like it quite a bit. I love the different angle on these new cards that are coming out. Yeah. So this is great. Next, we have Fury Storm, another one of the cycle of the Commander Storm cards. I think it's like fair to call these guys. 2 and 2 red for the instant. I think the other ones we've talked about so far have been sorceries. So this one's an instant. So whenever you cast a spell, copy it for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. You may choose new targets for the copies. And what it does is you copy target instant or sorcery card. You may choose new targets for the copy. So 1 copy is fun. And then if you've had your commander out 2 or 3 times, you get to make a bunch more of them.
Yeah, like there's numerous ways of copying a spell for 2 mana. It's usually red.
Fork, reverberate, yeah.
Sure. So if you've cast your commander once, you're getting a perfectly fair rate to copy a spell twice. 4 mana for 2 copies. But if you've cast your commander a couple more times, this gets very lucrative.
It certainly does. These the black one I know we talked about wasn't super impressive. The blue one seemed fine. I think this is good for a deck that does this sort of thing. Obviously, you're not just throwing this in any deck. However, one thing I will say, I learned this from Command Zone a long time ago. They talked about how, I think Jimmy talked about how he runs Fork in all of his red decks because it's a red counterspell for a counterspell. So if someone tries to counter one of your things that you're doing, Fork is a anti-counter, so it'll counter back their counterspell, which is like, oh, that's a neat trick.
Well, and it's also sort of, it could be card draw,
and it could be exactly, and it could be, of course, all the myriad of other things that it could be, but like for that reason, it's like kind of great. So Fury Storm has that going for it too, which is interesting.
I'm a fan. I love copy effects. The only question in my mind is like, if I already have Reverberate, do I upgrade it to this, or do I make room in addition for this?
Interesting. Yeah. The 2 additional cost is real. Especially when you're talking about leaving 2 up at the end of your turn is way easier than just leaving 4 up. You're talking about sacrificing, casting a whole other spell, and then you might not even need your Fury Storm. So
I bet you Neheb wants this.
Oh yeah, I think
you're going to cast your own big spells and copy them twice at least. Because if Neheb's around, you've cast him at least once.
Yeah. Epic Experiment wants a Fury Storm, even though you don't really cast the commander all that often.
Well, if you watch, I mean, I don't want to make any promises. It's not going to be out for a little while because we've just begun to scratch the surface about post-production, and that's going to take a little while. But you ran your Epic Experiment deck, and your commander came out more than once. In Battle of the Brews, it did come out more than once. Don't want to spoil too much, but no. yeah, Riku did see the battlefield a few times there. Okay, let's move on here past Fury Storm. Okay, Reality Scramble. This is the one I was waiting for. There's always one very chaotic, very weird card. This is it for me. 2 red sorcery. Put target permanent you own on the bottom of your library. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card that shares a card type with that permanent. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And it has retrace, so you can cast this from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its casting cost, which is 4 mana. Pretty cool. So you can just turn any permanent into another of its type. Right. And if you put your deck together correctly, if you know what's in there, you know which ones are like, you know what? This one is past its prime. Most of your creatures are upgrades from token creatures. Many mana artifacts that late in the game you maybe don't need them anymore. You can use those to upgrade them to possibly more mana rocks or possibly more impactful artifacts. And the fact that it has retrace means it's just like, yeah, cool. I'm just going to pay for upgrades all over the place. This is the type of card that, while seems fun and chaotic to your average commander player, I think for the players who really spike out and love like going for those crazy combos is actually a combo piece for some decks, in that, let's say you ran, I mean, I guess you would need blue for this, but like if you had Perfora or Keranos as your commander and you had no other enchantments except for Omniscience or something, you could Reality Scramble your commander and get Omniscience from your deck for 4 mana. Yep. And of course this goes for any card type of that as well. If you're one, if your commander's Bosch the Iron Golem, you can Reality Scramble out. I mean, that's a lot for your commander, but you could scramble out for the one other artifact in your deck that somehow makes you win the game or whatever, right? So there's that possibility, which I think is exciting. I mean, those players get that card. That's neat. I love when a card has that sort of like, that's the, you know what I mean? That's both sides of it. It's either like fun and silly or straight up, broken essentially. So I'm hoping to cast this card a bunch. You come in on there wherever you like, and I think Reality Scramble's a neat card. And also, the art is fantastic. And tell me that that's not leftover what's it called? Unset art. Unstable? Right? Yeah, that's unstable art for sure. That was used for now for something else. Yeah. But I love it. It's so cool. There's like a dinosaur. There's like a little dog there. There's that orangutan. Now, in the front, there's an anteater
Yeah.
and a fox. The fox is in the foreground with his arm out, and the anteater is slightly behind it. But they're similar in color, so when it's a small thumbnail, it looks like it's a little bit like the cheat from Homestar Runner, just going like, with the sideways mouth open.
Oh, yeah.
Like the fox's neck looks like the mouth of a bigger creature.
You mean like the dog?
Oh, is that a dog?
It looks like the dog above the anteater, you mean?
No, below. So there's that brown shape.
That's the anteater's head, isn't it?
And then behind it, in the foreground of the anteater, is a fox reaching out with its hand. But the two together look like one big creature. I'll have to like highlight it with a doodle and like.
I think it's the anteater reaching out with its hand.
I don't think so.
I don't see a fox at all. I just see an anteater going like this.
Oh. Well, maybe.
Anyways, cool little thing. And also nice Homestar Runner reference. The cheat is to the limit.
The cheat.
I just listened to
Jumbles. Just the Jumbles.
Fahugmo Gods the other day.
Yeah, great tune.
I'll pop back and listen to that song once in a while.
Yeah.
Okay. Finally, amongst the new cards of this Jund Lands Matters deck, we have Windgrace's Judgment, which is 3 black-green for an instant that says, for any number of opponents, destroy target non-land permanent that player controls. This is a commander card.
Wow.
This is great. This is...
Never losing card advantage.
Right? Never losing card advantage. It's spot removal that, is for multiplayer. This is great.
Wow.
I love it so much.
Huge fan. Instant speed.
Non-land
permanent.
5 mana
destroy, not exile.
is a lot. More than the 3 or I guess 4 mana for something like Utter End or something like that. But we'll take it. This is going to destroy 3 or 4 permanents depending on the size of your game, obviously, and that's going to be well worth it because it is non-land permanents. That's great.
Big fan.
Not much to say about this card other than that it's great.
Yeah,
love it. Okay,
so that's all the originals. Are there any cool, exciting reprints we wanted to mention that this deck comes with?
I will say that I am pleased to see a reprint of Avenger of Zendikar.
Yes.
With its landfall triggers and whatnot, the 7 mana. I mean, you guys probably all know Avenger Zendikar, but when it comes into play, it's 7 mana for 5/5. When it comes in, it makes a bunch of 0/1 plant creature tokens for how many lands you have, and then it has landfall, which is put some counter on them when a land comes into play.
Yeah, it was getting up to $8, I think. It was getting pretty pricey, so I'm very grateful to see this reprint. And they also gave us a reprint of Decimate. Decimate's just highly efficient. It always keeps creeping back up to a couple of dollars, but it's 2 red-green for a sorcery. Destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land. You have to have a valid target for all 4 before you can cast the spell, but a 4-for-1 is pretty good.
Yeah, and the next cool reprint we want to talk about is the Gitrog monster. 3 black-green for a legendary creature. It's a frog horror. 6/6.
Andy,
Sorry, what?
Andy, some people, the Gitrog, although perfect in this deck and is in just the right price range for a reprint, was not reprinted in this deck.
What?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, no.
You would think. So I'm going to talk about Mina and Den Wildborn.
Oh, okay, sure.
2 red-green for a 4/4. And you get to, whenever you...
No.
What?
No.
What do you mean?
No, it's not reprinted in this one.
Oh, they didn't put that in there?
No, they didn't put that in there. And even though it's like a pretty cheap card, and it certainly works with the deck, it lets you have multiple land drops, returning lands, bringing them back. Oh, for me? Okay, I will just keep going. Thank you very much. Sarah just made me coffee. And a little bagel. Let me start that over. And even though Mina and Den lets you have multiple land drops and even brings lands back to your hands to play again, no, they didn't include it. They did not include that. This is the most disappointing deck when it comes to reprints. Let's talk about it.
So
Oh,
So there's some high money ones that
right.
we don't always expect high money ones to get reprinted because that gets trickier, right?
Right.
They just gave us Crucible of Worlds and Scapeshift in M19 at Mythic. Oracle of Moldiah seems great, but it's like a $30 card. Those are tricky to fit in these pre-con products.
Right.
I'll give them that. But man, there's a lot more reprints too. What about like Ramunep Excavator from Amonkhet?
Yeah.
Like Crucible on a Stick. What about World Shaper from Ixalan that when it dies, put all the lands from your graveyard to the battlefield? They didn't give us Splendid Reclamation. They didn't give us that any of those like recent cards that just are wicked for getting lands back out.
And you could, I guess, make an argument that, well, you know, these are from some pretty recent sets, so they've been kind of setting up this deck to, you know, for you to be able to get a World Shaper, a Ramunep Excavator, you know, and while Scapeshift and Crucible Worlds aren't cheap, but they've been reprinted, so they are cheaper than they were, you know, a couple years ago and stuff, or even just 1 year ago. So that's great. And honestly, I'm not going to be a person who will complain about the EV of decks. I don't like you want it to be at a certain point just because you want to make sure, you know, you're getting your money's worth, obviously. But you like, I personally more care about like, what does this deck look like? What am I getting? Am I getting a bunch of cool cards? Am I getting a fun deck? Am I getting cool commanders? That's what I want. And I think for the most part with the original cards, they've hit it on the head. So I'm not one to complain about when it comes to value all that much. What I want is a cool looking deck, and specifically Gitrog Monster and Mina and Dead are two cards that I think, like, what could possibly be the reasoning for not including those two cards? Gitrog Monster is a card that is now getting slightly up there in cost. We're talking about like an $8 card. It's perfect to reprint it in this deck. Mina and Den doesn't cost anything, so why not reprint it? It's multicolored. It's a legendary creature. It gives us more access to more commanders and things like that. Like, why not? That's the thing I can't get out of anybody is why not those two cards?
I would also want to add Tireless Tracker to the list.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
It's gotten up to like $8, and I think because it's played in some modern decks, it's only going to get higher. This is the last chance to kind of keep that at a good price for people.
Absolutely, and would be fantastic in this deck.
Fantastic.
And note that we're not even complaining about any of the lands that get broken in these types of decks, right? There's tons of lands out there that go up in price because these decks exist, and certainly you could have reprinted any of those, and they chose not to, because another thing that we're not mentioning in this reprint section is any of the lands. None of the lands are really relevant to this deck. None of the reprinted lands. In fact, whatever. None of the reprinted lands. We also, I mean, I guess we could sit here all day and talk about the cards we didn't get, but we did not even get a reprint of Titania, Protector of Argoth, which I thought 100% for sure we're going to get a Titania, right? If you tell me about a Lands Matters deck and an opportunity to reprint a card, Titania right away. But we didn't. And we didn't get Angry Omnath. And we didn't, just so much stuff. It's just so disappointing.
It's very disappointing. It's very disappointing when it's like so fun. It would be so fun. And like this deck is going to be so fun when you get all those pieces yourself and put them together. But it just feels like, I don't know, what are we getting instead of it? Like
so here's the thing. So if you want to make a Lands Matters Jund deck, right? I don't even know if you buy this precon first and then add on to it, to be perfectly honest.
You just buy the parts.
Yeah. I think the only part of the original cards that we're seeing here is maybe like Lord Windgrace.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if any of the other ones really care that much. Nesting Dragon's got a cool land fall ability.
Sure.
But I don't know. Was there anything else that really stuck out to you as a Lands Matters card? Fury Storm certainly isn't. Reality Scrambles probably not.
No.
Xantia isn't. Like, this is the thing. Like, I don't mind it when some of the cards don't make sense just because you wanted to put this ability in or you wanted to put this card in, and we've seen it throughout even the other decks in this precon, and
they want you to be able to they want you to be able to swap in Gyrus and still have a deck, right? Sometimes it has to be about attacking.
Yeah, exactly, and that's fine. And like we said in the Esper one, like the Esper Zombie Lord, like it doesn't really make a ton of sense that's in that deck, but guess what? It's fine, because guess what? It's fun to have that card. But here, I'm looking at this, and I'm just saying, if I want to build a Jund Lands Matters deck, I'm not buying this deck. I'm just not buying it. Like, there's so many other cards that you would just need to go buy. You might as well just buy them all singles-wise. So that, to me, is like a straight-up failure when it comes to whoever designed this deck. And maybe they were working under restrictions and they couldn't do what they wanted to do. It's very possible. But then it's a failure from the company that put it out. And like, poof. I'm being harsh on it. I'm being, I'm not apologetic about this deck. I don't think it's very good.
Fair.
Like we said, the 3 commanders, only one of them makes sense in a Lands Matters deck. Like, at least do something. Put landfall on one of them, right?
Yeah.
Something? I don't know. Anyways, there you have it. Not too pleased with this, and I think maybe this comes from the fact that this was the one I was the most excited to get, because I've always wanted to do a lands deck, and I was like, this will be a great start for my lands deck. I won't need to go out and buy another Gitrog. I won't need to go buy Amina and Den. They'll all be in there. I won't need to worry about that. I'll go buy some other things.
Right.
And anyways, yeah. Oracle Moldian, not in the deck.
That stings.
Stings.
When it's the thing you're looking forward to the most.
Yeah, exactly. And this definitely was that, and it is definitely a letdown. Well, there it is. So
look for this one on the shelf for $25 in a year.
Yeah, right, exactly. Hope so. Anyways, there it is.
Big thanks to all our patrons who make these episodes possible.
Yeah, and if you want to check out more comedy videos, check out our Brews News playlist.
Make sure you follow us on Twitch TV to see when we play live.
If you want to chat with us, head over to Twitter. We're @CommandersBrew.
And please hit subscribe to ding the bell and find out when we got new stuff coming out.
See you next time.
Bye.